And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are through 2 rounds/3 rounds, if you count opening round, depending on how you look at it. Through the footy, we have another round to talk about, 8 games of football to talk with, and a very interesting co-host, a very good friend of mine, joining me from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. We have the man, the myth, the legend that is Blue Abroad, Mr. Terry Degani. Terry, great to see you, sir.
Coach Hess, I feel like now the season can start properly that we've done this, mate.
Always fun to sit down and talk with one of my best blues mates. Unfortunately, right now, it is not easy to be a blues supporter, but sir, you have my support when it comes to it. As I said in our before we went on, Mike, if you need a cuddle, I'll give you a virtual one if I can. So,
I, I will take a virtual cuddle. I'll take all the cuddles that I can get at the moment, mate. This is a real Carlton supporter now. When things are not going well, this is the reality that I've grown up with.
mm,
Turmoil.
well, like I said, I still don't think your season's over with, but I can definitely, unfortunately, the rumblings amongst the Blues supporters is definitely noticeable for sure. So we'll pull out of the doldrums for just the tiniest bit. Let's enjoy it. Hop right into it. 8 games of football this weekend. A little bit of everything. Some blowouts, some absolute crackers. Thoughts real quickly as round two overall.
Thoughts on the round overall? I mean, I always like to wait for the first month of the season before making any conclusions. But one thing I've noticed already from the 2 and a quarter rounds that we've had is just the way in which the ball moves now. Lots more run and carry than ever before, and it's quite noticeable. Maybe it is just a 2.5 week thing, but I think I think we're watching the next evolution of the game unfold before our eyes.
hmm Definitely. So you see the scoreboard's ticked up in a couple of these games, but the one thing you got to say though is it doesn't take away from the drama because we did have a couple of games that definitely were down to the wire for sure. So let's pull the band-aid off, sir. Let's get right through it. Thursday night footy unfortunately sees your Blues go down to the Hawthorn Hawks by 20, 80-60. Sir, I mean, this is not a bad Hawthorn team, so it's nothing to sniff at, but it's got to be frustrating because the expectations in Bluesland was this was a matchup, potential finals matchup going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak as a neutral, but I would only imagine if you were a neutral fan that that looked like a good game of football.
hmm
So I don't have an issue with the intensity from a Carlton perspective. Obviously the execution, the fundamentals, the basics, the skill errors, they're the things that continue to plague the Blues. And when you play against the better teams in the competition, Hawthorn is now one of them, you get punished. And that's how I think it played out. As a Carlton supporter, there's a bit of a lingering frustration or a lot from the week before and the way that that played out in round one. So I do think the reaction to the game was more emotional than what it would normally be. But fair play to Hawthorn. They're disciplined, they execute, they do the basics well, and they're just such a cohesive unit. And that was the reason why they were able to win the game. They're just better.
Yeah, I mean, when you get impacts like CJ Jath comes back and has a couple of absolutely fantastic plays in there. I mean, it just seems like the role players know what they're doing. The superstars know when to do it, how to do it. I mean, still to this day, you look at Jai Newcomb and go, "How the heck was he a mid-season draft pick?" Like it mind blows me that this kid was a mid-season draft pick and he's one of the premier midfielders in the competition. It's absolutely insane. But I mean, Mitchell's got them doing exactly what they need to do. And you see that, I mean, this is a Hawks team. They're absolutely rolling right now. So it's hard to argue that it's not a bad loss, but it is one of those. It's frustrating because again, you were there, you were in the game. It just kind of unfortunately got away from you in the end. So let's jump to Friday night footy, where there's a lot of communication and talk and a lot of drama on this one. As the Footscray Bulldogs for one night, the Footscray Bulldogs fall to the Collingwood Magpies at the MCG 76-70. And there's one topic I want to talk about just right off the bat. Rory Lobb. the hair. Seriously.
It's almost like it was all part of the plan.
Oh,
And the fact
geez.
that he got cited for the hit as well, just like, is it a coincidence or
Oh, I love the people that were pointing out that Ed Richards had a red set of hair. Vandermeer had blonde, like almost blonde hair to the point where it's almost white, and then he had blue. So it was like you just wanted them the three to run together at times, red, white, blue. Oh, geez.
yeah,
It was definitely a fun one. I know the biggest thing coming out of this one is the complaining of the umpires. I mean, and again, I never like going to it because personally I think way too many fans blame the umpires when it's a structural thing or it's a player thing or it's a mistake thing. I mean, I get it, but it is kind of one of those where it was like the biggest factor everybody's wanting to talk about is the umpiring. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But again, as I've said many times, I've umpired games. It is not an easy sport to umpire. So getting on the umpires for not being perfect is more on you as a fan than it is about whether the umpire is doing their job or not.
yeah, it is what it is. It's hard. Every team has had the games when it goes their way. Every team has had their games where it doesn't go their way. It's just it's a reality of the sport.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. I know free kick Collingwood was trending there for a bit. But it's one of those where it happens. Again, I've never seen it in the rule book where it says that the free kick count has to be 50-50 because in a game where one team has the ball for 80% of the time, it's really going to be difficult for the free kick count to be even. So I've never understood the argument of look at the free kick count. I mean, it really doesn't tell you much. I mean, it
No.
tells you the ones that were called. It doesn't tell you the ones that were not called or how many of those ones that are called were correct. So I never like going to this. A good game of football. I have to say this that the Duggies have been impressive despite their outs. No Trelaw, no Bontempelli, no Jones, and they're still playing good football. I mean,
Yeah.
despite the blue hair, I think Roy Lobb has actually been decent down back. And Sam Darcy, I mean, literally showed why he is one of the. I mean, I've started hearing people call him the unicorn because there are very few full forwards that are 208 centimeters that can mark the footy as well as he does.
Yeah, well, the way he marks the ball at its highest point, the force that he jumps at the football with. Uh, I mean, I was watching that game in the first half. I was saying, I mean, he's going to kick 12 goals in a game. One
Mm-hmm.
day it's all going to click and he's going to have one of those days. Just the way he marks the ball, the contested marking. And usually when you're that tall, sometimes the force can be something that the player doesn't have, the way that they launch the football. But he's got like Aaron Norton's launch at the football with
Mm-hmm.
a longer reach and
Mm-hmm.
the technique and the way that he marks it at the highest point. Yeah, I mean, if you're a doggy supporter, you must be so happy that he's there with you now, and that's just the future. I mean, I know that Jamar is going through whatever he's going through, but you got Darcy there, and like, everything's going to be okay as long as he's there and keeps his head.
At this point, Jamara could leave, and they may not actually be as in the hole as you would possibly think if Darcy continues to progress the way he's going. But and again,
Yeah,
Collingwood was Collingwood. They did what they needed to do. Nick Dacos was Nick Dacos. It was fantastic to see the celebration of Sidebottom and Pendlebury having that record of games played, the cool little soccer jersey exchange where they both changed jerseys and then wore the other's jersey while they were arm in arm it was really cool to see that. So cool touching moments. I mean the game of footy was exactly as you kind of thought. Collingwood did what they needed to do. Doggies just fell a little short, but again, a cracking game of football. Let's jump to the MCG on Saturday afternoon as we see the Adelaide Crows go over to the MCG, break the hoodoo from 2016 and put a whooping on the Essendon Bombers 161-100, a 61-point win. And as we were saying off mic, this is the Crows team I think we were expecting last year.
yeah. Well, I mean, that was the question going into the week. You know, can they win away from Adelaide Oval? They've generally always been pretty solid at home.
Mhm.
It's just when they start traveling, that's when the holes can appear. And I mean, mate, they are humming along, slingshot football, elite kickers all over the ground. I mean, led by Dawson, who is just he's one of my favorite players outside of my own club. Strong forward line. They've got a couple of targets there now with Fogarty and Tex, and you've got Thilthorpe now that's starting to really emerge. This is them. I think they're real.
Mhm.
It is early in the season, but I mean they've got all the pieces, and I mean their scoring power is just frightening.
Yep. And I mean, you're starting to see Saligo really solidify himself if they can keep Rankin healthy. I mean, they went so far as they felt they were so confident they took Rankin out halfway through the third quarter, put him on ice, and brought in the sub, the young South Australian that they did. I mean, just no matter what line it is, they're getting Wayne Miller hopefully can stay healthy. That's the biggest thing there is that you get a ball moving halfback. You're getting impacts from everywhere on the field. You're getting Rory Laird's moved out of the midfield, went to that halfback line and has kind of found his little niche. It's been fun to see this Crows team because they showed why a couple of years ago they were right there in the chance for the finals, and then all of the behind gate happened, which we will move on from because everybody knows my opinions on that when it comes to it. But I mean, this was a fun Crows team to watch. I mean, the funny part is that Tex is in there, and Tex is probably the third or fourth option when it comes to going forward. I mean, Riley Thilthorpe has become the Hulk up front because he's so big, he's so strong. It's a little bit like Sam Darcy. It's just if he gets his arms up, you are not keeping him from marking the football. And unfortunately, it helps that Essendon's defense right now is just they are absolutely out to sea. They're like Swiss cheese. There's just holes everywhere. There's miscommunications, and I feel kind of bad for Coach Scott because he can do all that he wants during practice. He can give him all the things. But if these players cannot communicate on the ground, this is going to continue to keep happening. And it could be a long season in Bomberland.
Yeah, yeah. But footy's a funny game. Things can change.
That it is. That it is. We'll jump over to the Adelaide Oval as Richmond unfortunately come back down from Earth after the glorious first game that it was. Again, I'm sorry to my blue supporter here as my co-host,
Coach,
but
come on, man. What's
I'm
going on,
sorry.
man?
I'm sorry,
Come
but
on.
they get brought back to earth with a crash as Port Adelaide welcomed them to reality with a 72-point win, 140 to 68. This is a little bit more like what I was kind of expecting Richmond to do this year. Port looked fantastic. Travis Boak breaks Russell Ebert's record for most games played at Port Adelaide again. Congratulations to Boki there. Well deserved. Fantastic. I mean, this was high flying Port Adelaide, and they're still without one of their better players in Butters through the center.
Yeah. I mean, they needed a response, and they just showed you what happens when you get up on a team like Richmond. You've got to put the foot down, and yeah, very impressive stuff.
Yeah,
But really, that was I guess an expectation that would happen, and
yeah.
sometimes teams can crumble under that expectation, and some teams embrace it and roll with it, and you know. It's amazing because Port Adelaide is a team that a bad loss and the heat comes really heavily as well on them with their coach
Mhm.
and the like. So yeah, they were great.
Yeah, all of the talk of should Kenny have stepped aside and let Josh Carr take over with
Yeah.
the coach and waiting stuff, which again is a little bit I think is more of the media trying to push an agenda more than more trying to push something than anything. I think they know what they're doing. They in Clubland they know what they're doing, but it's just rather frustrating. It's Richmond kind of got brought back to earth. It's the bane of youth is that you're going to get these yo-yo performances. You're going to get a great one, you're going to get a one. So I kind of
Well,
expected this a little bit.
a team like Richmond, you need to put them away. And if you give them an
Hmm.
opportunity to feel like they could win a game, they will win a game because I think they're aware that wins are going to be very hard this year.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll get you'll get ones where they just absolutely play. They everything clicks, and then you'll get games where nothing works. So, and unfortunately, this was one of those that did. So, we'll go to one of the crackers, an absolute fantastic one under the lid at Marvel as the St. Kilda Saints do it again. Rossi Lyon finds a way to nip the Cats, 98-91. this was a fun one for me because, as you said, you watched this one. I happened to stay up and watch this one. I thought this was an absolute cracking game of football. Nasiah Wangani Miller again showing absolutely why he's one of the best full halfbacks in the entire competition. The Cats fought through injury. Tommy Stewart goes down earlier in this one, but what an incredible game of football! And again, Ross Lyon finding a way to get it done again.
Yeah, yeah. I was I was shocked at how much the lead blew out, and how slow and how lethargic the Cats looked. But then, you know, I know that they lost, but you just see the hallmarks of what makes a great team great and a great club great. They just don't panic. They chipped away at it to the point where there was just this underlying confidence that they would put themselves in a winning position, and then it was fair play to St Kilda. They held on, and yeah, a cracking game of football.
Yep. Yep. No, it was fantastic to seeing that again. St. Kilda showed that on their day they could be quite the dangerous football team. And again, the Cats, despite Tommy Stewart, they were still in it. You saw some great performances from them. It was a cracking game of football. Absolutely enjoyed it. Was glad that I stayed up and watched that game because that was an
Well
absolutely
worth it.
fantastic one to stay up through 2 a.m. to watch. Definitely for sure. So, and we'll go to the next one, which this is one that I look at the final score, and for me, this is so misleading because Brizzy get the win by 19 up at the GABA, and there's two main talking points that I want to discuss really quickly, and that a game in the afternoon up in Queensland, oof, that did not go over well with the coaches because I felt horrible for the players because I've practiced in 35 degree weather, trained. I've never played in a game that warm, and for these guys to be the elite level guys, and for so many guys to have cramps, so many guys to just they were wringing their jerseys out like every 10 minutes. It was horrid conditions on this one. I mean, fair go to these players, but I agree that you cannot play a game in Queensland during this time of the year at noon their time. Ridiculous.
No, it can't happen. Yeah, I mean, to watch them wearing the ice vests after their first rotation in the first quarter just gives
Mhm.
you an idea as to how well dangerous
Mhm.
it was.
Yeah, it was very, very, very scary. So I'm interested to see how both those teams respond back from that because that zaps you. Like it doesn't matter how good a condition you are, that absolutely zaps you for at least a couple
Yeah.
of days. It takes several days to get the hydration back into you, the electrolytes and everything like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how both teams come off of it. Let's we'll touch the topic really quickly. Harley Reid and a little bit of Muppet behavior. I know that everybody saw the one-fingered salute to the fan. I mean, is this being overblown because of who Harley Reid is, or is this something the West Coast Eagles brass should be a little concerned about that your young superstar is very easily kind of taken off his game as the fans kind of gave it to him and he decided to one finger salute them back?
Uh, I mean, he's a 19-year-old kid that's been labeled as a superstar, and he's a great talent. He will learn how to regulate his emotions, as we all do, as we get closer to our 30s and 40s. I think because it's Harley Reid, it just gets a little bit more attention.
Mhm.
And I don't know, he's just a young man trying to figure his way out. His identity is football. The external world tells him that he's a superstar and a $2 million player one week, and then the next week it's what's wrong with Harley Reid, and everyone's speculating on every decision that he might make in his life. And I think the young man's just navigating his way through it. He stuck his
Mhm.
finger up at a crowd member, like, who cares?
Yeah, I think it was a little more overblown. I know that there's another image circling social media that'll go with the next game, and what we can talk about that one a little bit because that one got some more fun attention when it comes to it. But I think it's a little overblown. Any other player it might not even been discussed, maybe not even brought up. But the fact that it's the talisman of the West Coast Eagles, this number one overall kid that the generational talent as that word is unfortunately I think being thrown out a little too much nowadays is that is unfortunately is because he did it. It's the camera caught it, so it's newsworthy. It's the kid has discipline issues. I mean, sometimes when somebody talks enough crap, sometimes there's just so much you can take. So I
Yeah.
completely and utterly get it. I understand the patrons pay the money, they can do that, but there does come a point where who really is the douchebag in the long run? Is it really the player, or is it these people having a go at him for no apparent reason besides he's a 19-year-old kid and he's a superstar? And so,
Well, I think also, it's important to have the right leaders around him as well.
I agree.
And that's something that the Eagles need to be very conscious of with Harley.
Yep, nope, I agree. It's got to get the right leadership and the right voices in his ear will
Yeah.
definitely be interesting. We'll jump down back down to Marvel Stadium under the lid as the North Melbourne Kangaroos put rapturous joy through their fan base as they put a whooping on the Melbourne Demons 125-66, a 59-point win. And the joy in the stands as that final siren went off, I have to say, brought a tear to my eye. I was so happy for the North Melbourne faithful because they've went through so much BS with their club and everything that I was happy to see them get a win, an impressive win, but now our expectations coming.
Yeah. Well, it's what footy's all about, especially when you're a rebuilding club and there's always, a certain win that just, it feels a little bit more than 4 points. And I think this was that for the North Melbourne supporters. I resonate with what you said, just seeing the joy on their faces. I mean, I watched the first half of this game and then I was out, and it was one of those ones where you get the phone out a couple of hours later because you've got whatever you've got on, and then you look at the score and it's like, oh, they won by 10 goals. Like, oh, go North. Yeah, uh, I think most footy people were happy for North. There's just
Mm.
there's something about the underdog who's been down for so long finally getting a win that, I think captures the hearts of footy faithful. And then naturally they might win a few more, and then the tall poppy syndrome will come back, and everyone will want them losing again. But for the time being, it was great.
Yeah, no, I completely understand it. And I think they have done through so many doldrums. I mean, a few of the North supporters and mates that I have, it's like, I'll openly say this is because the Swans game started 2:15 in the morning. I went to bed. I wanted to take a nap so I could get
Yeah.
through the game without any issues. And I woke up, turned the game on, and the Fox footy because of it had the final quarter. And I looked at the score and I double taked and I went, what? Like it didn't compute for half a second. I'm like, this score's got to be backwards. Like really. And again, no offense to the North faithful, but it was just the way my brain was processed. I was not expecting that. So as again, super happy. Reached out to the North supporters that I had and told and just wanted to check in to see how joyous and rapturous they were and watch the highlights back a little bit later and was just so impressed. I mean, seeing the veterans that they brought in make the impact that I thought they could. I think Caleb Daniels has been a perfect addition to them off the halfback line. Luke Parker brings a little more grit and get after and mongrel in through their midfield, and Jack Darling being able to celebrate 200 wins and be another kind of helper to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off Nick Larkey up forward. You're seeing Paul Curtis step up and start playing much better. Colby McKercher having a good game. Powell coming through and playing well. So they're starting to kind of reap the rewards of the youngsters that they've drafted. So hopefully, crossing our fingers that maybe we start to see North Melbourne maybe get a little momentum. It would be fantastic, not only for the Roof faithful, but just to kind of increase the the competitiveness in the competition. We jump out to Optus Stadium, final game of the round. And boy was the old ball coach absolutely just not having fun for about 95% of this game. The Swans pull out a big win on the road by 3, 68-65 over the Fremantle Dockers. But this is one I'm going to say it as a Swans fan. This is more of Fremantle lost this game more than the Swans won it. The Swans pulled up their bootstraps. They found a way to get it done. But Fremantle has absolutely got to be kicking themselves because there were several moments in this game that if they kick straight or don't have an error at the right time, this is an easy win for the Dockers.
Yeah. Well, you can say what you want. The Swannies got it done, mate. They found a way.
Mhm.
I watched only the fourth quarter. I was out, so I got home in time for the fourth. And mate, that's what makes a great. That's the difference between a good team and a great team. The great teams, I mean, Geelong lost, but like I said earlier, you just knew that they would put themselves back in a position to win the game. And I think the Swans were in the exact same situation. They put themselves in a position to win the game, and they executed and got it done.
Mhm.
You got to be happy with that if you're a supporter.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and seeing a mature age recruiter, 24-year-old Riley Bice bury that running goal late in the fourth quarter to pull it back to single digits. And for me, that just put a smile on my face because it's those great footy stories. The kid that never got drafted, that played through Werribee, won a premiership with Werribee last year, and gets drafted, and he's made an impact. It's to the point where I'm even hearing some fans go, "Is he the little lizard?" Because he's a lot like Nick Blakey. And sometimes he goes for runs, and you're kind of like, "What are you doing?" But then he finds a way to make a kick, and it works. So do we have a Nick Blakey clone on the Swans? It'll be definitely interesting to
Oh,
see how Riley
two Nick
how
Blakes.
on the same team too. It'll be
Oh
interesting,
man.
but it was so I was so happy for Riley to bury that and Joel Armati to get the winner in a one-on-one contest and be able to kind of show that there's still some there, and then for the Swans to look at it and go, no Errol Golden, no Cal Mills, there's some injuries there to the point where it's like to grind out a victory and to go into the bye week with a win, some confidence. You're not going in 0-3. It kind of settles this group down. I think things are going to kind of round out. Plus, Dean Cox getting his first win, seeing him so happy in the coach's box was absolutely magnificent for the Swans fan in me. It was absolutely magnificent for that to happen, and it was a great game. And I really wanted to give a cuddle to my Fremantle fans because I feel for them because that one was one of those it just got away from them. They're still a really really good team. I still think they can find their way and still be have a chance to make the eight and be there when the whips are cracking. But I just don't know what's going to happen because right now Longmuir just seems to not have any ideas, and I just don't know how he's going to get out of this. It's going to be interesting. But Josh Tracy was magnificent, kicked 4 goals in this game, but man, so many ways to rue how this one got away. So it's
Yeah.
the whole boy. So very,
Yeah.
but a cracking game to end the round. And the Suns and the Giants both had a nice little sit on the couch and enjoyed their weekend. So that is all 8 games talked about. Let's jump to the burning questions. And I'm going to be very interested with this one with you, Terry, because unfortunately, um, well, again, we'll rip off the band-aid. There are 5 teams that have no wins. I won't put out the names. We'll go through it. Are there any teams in your opinion do you think are hitting the panic button, even though despite most of them are only 0-2?
Depends who you ask. I think if you're a Carlton supporter, panic stations. Um, I would say out of all of them, maybe Carlton. It's getting to a point where there's a bit of fear of okay, what's going on? The end of 2024 happened the way it happened. Injuries were the excuse. The elimination final down 10 goals to 0. Supposed to be a line in the sand moment. Then you get to round one, disaster, and then you get to round two, still not good enough. So I wouldn't say a full panic, but I think they're the closest ones.
See, for me, I think it's a little bit of I think Fremantle. I think some Fremantle fans are starting to hit the panic button only because again, this is what's going to be their system? What's going to be their
Yeah,
style of footy? Because you're just not seeing it. I think he took a lot of flack for saying that he came in with a vanilla game plan against the Indigenous All Stars, and then first game into the season, it's pretty much the same thing. There really was no difference, and everybody's like, "Dude, you served up vanilla after you told us that you were going to give us Neapolitan or something to that effect." So for me, I can you kind of feel Fremantle fans kind of starting to reach for that panic button a little bit. I Melbourne a little bit, but I'm not really sure because I think there's still kind of this disconnect between the fans and the club because I kind of get like the club thinks that they're still a finals contender. They're going to potentially be in the flying contention. I think some of the fans have kind of realized that with the youngsters that are being shifted into this team, are they kind of trying to rebuild while starting to stay competitive? I'm not really sure. Like this, there just seems to be a little bit of a disconnect with what I'm hearing from the club and kind of what I'm gathering from the fans is that they're just not connecting. I just not seeing a connection there. So for me, I can almost maybe see the fans kind of going panic stations because they're like they see it, but the club doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Can resonate with that.
Unfortunately, like in Essendon, I don't think that people are hitting panic button. I think they're full on thinking that the house is on fire just because of how horrible the defense has been in the West Coast Eagles. Again, I think we kind of all expected them to be bottom four side, so I don't know if anybody's really panic stationing on that. So those are the five teams: Carlton, Melbourne, Essendon, Fremantle, and West Coast are the five teams that are there at the bottom. So I mean, I could see panic stations for three of them, but two of them are panic stations just because I think they weren't expecting to be there, and one is maybe not panic stations, but they kind of expected it. So we go to the next one, and I know this isn't easy, but could take your Blues hat off for just a second. Just be the footy fan that you are. Is it a little discouraging seeing all these blowouts so early in the year?
Um, Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah. I mean, we missed footy for so long, so it's
No, I
back, and
get
yeah,
it.
there's a few
Okay.
blowouts. I'm not yet ready to be discouraged by them.
Okay. I
This is
think
also
what
why we play fantasy football.
yeah, no, I get it. Trust me, I'm in a I'm in a fantasy league with a few Americans over here, and it's a lot of fun. And the point values and some of these teams are getting ridiculous, kind of ridiculous. But I think for me, only the reason that I kind of bring this up is for me is that I'm used to the blowouts as the season goes on because you have injuries, you have teams that are just not playing well, you have teams that are just really clicking. So to see games where it gets to 50, 60, and 70 so early in the season where most teams are healthy, again, not all teams are healthy, and most guys are playing pretty good footy, but they're still kind of getting into the groove. So to see a team get blown up by 60, 70 early in the year, it's a little bit like what's going on? It kind of
Mm,
my thought process. Again, like I said, I'm just seeing the margins that I had so early in the season is for me a little bit like I want the games early in the season to be competitive so we can kind of establish who are the good teams, who are the bad teams. And right now it kind of seems like every week you get a little bit of different flavoring to each of the rounds. So it does kind of add a whole degree of interest, but seeing a game get to be 100 get to be a 50-point loss is not always as fun to sit down and try to watch that, especially if it's your team that's getting whacked.
yeah, exactly.
So all right, we'll go to it is I always end the burning questions when I have a player show a fan supporting. I gotta ask this. I mean, you got your finger on the pulse. You talk with Blues fans all the time. Tell me what the mindset of the Blues supporter is right now, because I don't know if I want to go into that, especially considering I heard talk radio after the Richmond game. So, I mean, what's the mindset in Blues Nation right now?
Yeah, there is a serious concern around the coach. The sack Voss rhetoric has already begun.
Hmm.
The leaks of rumors of what's going on inside are back, which is not a good sign. People are hurting. It's beyond anger. It's a sadness. I mean, obviously, I do the fan cams after a game, so I'm really engrossed in that emotion and feeling. And it's not yelling and screaming. I mean, people that go on radio. I mean, you should be watching the fan cams, not going on SEN, coach. That's where you want to see the rhetoric. But no, there's a sadness. There's elements of apathy that are creeping in, and
Hmm.
it's just got it's just got this feeling of, oh, are we going down the external review path, or are the boys going to rally together and get their shit together and get it done. And
Hmm.
yeah, there's definitely a heightened concern and a lot of sensitivity, and it's very volatile. It's either blow the joint up
Hmm.
or stick together.
It's very much the tale of any fan, because some just they jump the shark and they jump to conclusions. Fire Voss, fire
Yeah.
the footy manager, get rid of it, blow the damn thing up, pull it down to the studs. Let's just get rid of all the great players. Let's just go to the draft and try to rebuild in the next 10 years. And then you have the kind of the middle ones where they kind of understand it, but they go, let's wait and see a little bit before they jump. And then you have the people that are just like, hey, chill out, calm down. We're 2 games into the season, relax. And unfortunately, the squeakiest wheels are usually the ones that want to fire and jump to conclusions and all that. So I get it. It's not even the SEN. It's just that when you watch AFL 360, and one of the things that they talk about Voss, and then they play some of the talk radios, or you hear that. So I mean, you get it. You really do. It's the life of a fan. I mean, fans are emotional. We're going to be emotional about our team. And especially with the Blues, who have been through so much BS. Like, you guys have been through
Mm.
so many years of toughness. You get a couple of years, you get to a prelim final 2 years ago, and you think you're on the ascendancy. And then last year, kind of the injuries really caught up to you. You go into the finals, you kind of throw a team together that's held together by any adhesive you can find, and you come into this year thinking, okay, well, we're healthy, we're getting back up to it, here we go. And game one happens, and you could kind of tell it tail spun a lot of people. So I'm one of those. I look at it, there's still a really good group here. It's just finding the right mix is going to be the biggest question. You get a win this week over the doggies. I think some confidence comes back into the group, and I think you'll be fine. You lose to the doggies close, I still think you can take some positives out. You get blown out, or lose to the doggies by 4 or more goals, then all hell could break loose. And
Oh
I
boy.
don't want that to happen. As much as I've got doggies fans too, I don't want that to happen, especially for guys like you. I don't want you guys to go through that pain. But it's really, I think the first 10 minutes against the doggies this week is really going to be telling, because how does Voss pull this group together? That'll be the main thing for me, is how does he do that? Because if he does, again, the bones are there for a really good team. I'm fascinated by this Blues team, because on their day, they could be one of the toughest teams in the entire competition.
Yeah.
So, so now that I've pumped you up as much as I possibly can here, Terry. So, all right, we'll go to it. So we're still early in the season, so we haven't played 5 games. So the power rankings are still not ready yet. I like to let them simmer a little bit, kind of like Terry said. It's still early in the season, so I don't want to make any huge declarations. So we'll go to team of the week. And Terry, you know all about this. This is always a little bit fun. You've been one of those that I love your little tidbits. So I'm fascinated to see what you think on this. So we'll start on the defensive. We'll start on the fullback line. I know James Sicily got thrown forward, but a majority of his game played on the back. So he'll be fullback James Sicily. Western Bulldogs Joel Frisia, and Geelong's Mark Blitzovs has played a lot of back this year, so that would be the fullback line. Halfback line sees Wayne Miller of the Adelaide Crows, Port Adelaide's Kane Farrell, and St. Kilda's Jack Sinclair. I know Jack's went through the center a little bit more this year, but he did play a majority halfback in this game. On the wings, we see Mason Wood of St. Kilda and Port's Jace Burgoyne. The ruck would be Tristan Ziri of the North Melbourne Kangaroos. Through the center, Jake Saligo of the Adelaide Crows, Essendon's Zach Merritt, and Port Adelaide's Connor Rosie. At the half forward line, we see Josh Rochelle of the Adelaide Crows, Western Bulldogs Sam Darcy, and Adelaide's Ben Keys. Through the full forward line, we have Jack Higgins of the St. Kilda Saints, North's Cam Zerha, and Port Adelaide's Mitch Georgiades will be the starters. On the bench, my defender is West Coast Ryan Merrick. My ruck is Fremantle's Luke Jackson. My midfielder is Marcus Windhager of the St. Kilda Saints. And my forward is Josh Tracy of the Fremantle Dockers. So, again, a lot of goals kicked by the forwards in this one. Thoughts on team of the week?
I like the blend that you've got there. I'm glad that you gave Fraser his flowers. He's a favorite of mine already early in
Yep.
the year. I'm going to
Yeah.
get to watch him up close and personal Friday night.
Yeah, definitely a
He's got something
workhorse
about him.
defender, like his game, I've really liked that Coach Scott for Geelong has moved Mark Blitzau's back. He gives him a little bit more height. I don't like he can go through the center with his athleticism. So I think both of those moves. Seeing Wayne Miller a healthy is another thing that I think is fantastic for Adelaide. I think that's really even made their offense even better. So it was a fun week. Like I said, the forwards was nuts because Adelaide had four players kick at least three goals or more.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, and that is the team of the week. We'll go to it. I know we are still early in the week, but we got to tip round three. So let's hop right into it, sir. This week, again, we will have 8 games as Collingwood and Sydney take a rest on the couch this week. We'll go to Thursday night footy under the lid at Marvel Stadium. Essendon hosts Port Adelaide. Adelaide coming off a nice win over Richmond. Essendon getting pantsed by the Adelaide Crows. It'll be fascinating under the lid. Who do you like in this one?
I think the Bombers will do it. I don't know why.
Sometimes it's just a feeling, man. Sometimes it's just a
Yeah.
feeling. I'm gonna.
No logic.
I know. I completely get it. Sometimes when you take a whipping, sometimes you have your responses. I like what Port's doing. I think they've surprisingly been able to handle the Houston loss, and I think have actually kind of let Kane Farrell off the leash, and I think has been fantastic. I just really want Jason Horn Francis to pull his head in and to kind of make up his mind whether he wants to be a dominant forward, whether he wants to be a dominant player, or he just wants to be a role player. So be fascinating. I'm going to tip Port in this one, just because defensively right now Essendon is still in shambles. They're not going to be able to fix it in a week. And when you've got Willie Rioli, Mitch Georgiades, and and Jason Horn Francis can go forward, I think that's going to give them so many headaches. So I'm going to tip Port in this one. Head versus heart, sir. Friday night footy. Your beloved Blues host the Western Bulldogs under the lid at Marvel Stadium.
The Blues, mate. The Blues to get their first win of the season, and everyone gets that little bit of nourishment that they need and a
Yep.
sigh of relief.
Well, you'll smile. I have the Blues too. I think Vossi gets the boys going. I think a little bit of bully ball. I think maybe you see Mackay and Kerno have a day out this week. Even if Liam Jones is back, I think it's fantastic. I like the Blues in this one. I just think a little bit too much firepower for the Blues on this one, but a cracking game between between the Bulldogs and the Blues. A fun one at the MCG as the Melbourne Demons host the Gold Coast Suns. I'm gonna tip the Suns in this one. Honestly, I think Coach Simpson opened up a can of worms in his things. Now, so many people are going to be asking Max Gone what's going on. I think it's going to get distracting. I think Dimma's going to have the boys up and about. They've had a bye week. They come in. The D's are kind of getting kicked around. And unfortunately, I think the Suns come in and surprise and shock the D's. I have the Suns winning at the MCG.
I also have the Suns winning at the MCG.
Fun one, fun one. Good one at Marvel Stadium under the lid as St. Kilda hosts the Richmond Tigers. St. Kilda coming off a marvelous win over Geelong and Fremantle, licking their wounds coming back from South Australia. Saints, Tigers, who do you like?
We'll go the Saints. Saints will get the job done.
Yep. I'm gonna tip the Saints in this one, but they cannot take this Tigers team lightly. If they have any kind of step back, the Tigers could pounce. It'll be fun on that one.
Yeah.
Tipping the Saints, but wouldn't be surprised if Richmond makes this a fun one. An absolute classic down in Tassie at Utah Stadium in Launceston as the Hawks host the Giants 1v3 on the ladder. Who knows? Maybe this could even be a grand final preview. I cannot wait for this one. As much as I would love to tip the neighbors of my team, the GWS Giants, I'm going to tip the Hawks in this one. They're starting to get even more healthy. They're getting impacts throughout the team. I think Mitchell will have them absolutely up and about. I'm going to tip the Hawks in this one, but this one will be magnificent.
Yeah. Hawks in Tassie. They're no strangers to Tassie. I think they'll win as well.
Yeah, be a fun one. The moved one after Hurricane Alfred decided to take this away from opening round and actually has placed it nicely on Saturday night footy as the Brisbane Lions at the Gabba host the Geelong Cat. The Cats licking their wounds. The Lions be interesting. I'm going to tip the Lions in this one. But man, did I come close to tipping the Cats purely on the fact that Brisbane is coming off that absolutely brutal game against West Coast. And you get a Cats team that they're going to be angry after that loss to the Saints, tipping the Lions. But I think the Cats are in this one with a shout.
I'm going to tip Geelong. I'm going to tip them to respond. This will be both games. So this one and the Hawthorn game is the same at the same
Same
time. Is that
time.
right?
Yep.
Oh,
Three. Yep.
mate, Coach Hess, we got to fix up there. This scheduling is just no good, mate.
I think
What's
this
going on there?
I think this is one that Alfred kind of threw them a little bit of threw him for a little
Fair.
bit of a loop, and I think they don't want to overlap the Western Derby, so it's kind of one of those where they kind of so this is one I will probably sleep through both of these and then watch them individually. Because the one thing that annoys me about the watch AFL app is because it's Fox Footy is you get what I call the spoiler bug because you get the other score that's going on at the same time's score. And I don't want to because I don't want to know because I want to watch it later. I don't want to watch it now. I want to watch it later. So it's like, so I may sleep through this one and then watch both games individually so that I don't have that score bug because I'm not going to want to know how the other game turned out. It's going to ruin it. And I hate spoilers when it comes to it. So I will probably, that'll be a fun one. But man, two games absolute crackers back to back. Cannot wait for that one. Going to be fun. An interesting one at the Adelaide Oval as the Crows host the Roos, North Melbourne Kangaroos at the AO. Fun one here. Gonna tip the Crows in this one. But man, is it going to be fun to watch this North and Crows team go at it because this is going to be I think this is going to be a good game. I think this one could come down late to the fourth quarter. I think North's got a lot of bounce off this one, and the Crows play really well at home.
Crows by 45 points for me.
Bring them back to
I'm
earth.
a believer. Yeah, I'm a believer. I'm a big believer in the Crows.
Oh, again, I think the Crows could be a top four side. If they play like they have been playing, they could be a top four side. That's how good they can be. But it's
Mm.
gonna be a fun one. Like I said, I'm hoping this one's an absolute cracker. And then out west, Optus Stadium, West Coast v Fremantle. The Western Derby has never been more important for both teams. West Coast trying to get on the board, Fremantle trying to get on the board. Somebody's O has got to go.
Logically, you would think Fremantle will win this game, but there's that pressure element of, players could get sucked into the idea on the field while they're out there, like, oh, we have to win this game. And
Mhm.
as soon as you start thinking about that and you're not thinking about the present moment, that's when things can go wrong.
Mhm.
I will tip Fremantle, but you just never know.
Tipping Fremantle only because I think West Coast is going to see the effects of that game at the GABA this week even more than Brisbane because of the plane flights and
True.
the fact that now you're facing a team that's going to be just as desperate as you are to win. I agree with you. I think Fremantle's going to kind of level this game a little bit because if it was an even game, Fremantle should win this easily. Fremantle
Mm.
much better midfield, much better forward, much better defense. They should win this easily. But I think this thing evens out because the pressure's going to get to them. There's going to be errors, and West Coast is a pesky side, as we saw with Brisbane. They were up for a good portion of that game on Brisbane in the Gabba, but I think the heat is going to affect them. I think by the fourth quarter, Fremantle blows this out. It gets to 30, 40, 50, because
Yeah.
Fremantle will just be able to run more. West Coast, they are going to feel it come the third and fourth quarters. And I think Fremantle will capitalize on this, like the Dockers in this one. Fascinating Western Derby on that one. So that is it, Terry. That is all 8 games tipped. We've went through the episode as per usual. I absolutely love talking with you again. I wish it was in better circumstances when it comes to your beloved Blues, but we'll jump right to it. How are things at Blue Abroad? I know that you are continuing to do such great work. It's fantastic. I try to keep an eye on it as much as I can. So, how are things going with Blue Abroad?
Thank you, mate. Things are going well. I'm enjoying, I love what I do. Had a really good preparation for the year. I went away and did my own version of a preseason camp, just to get the mind ready for the year ahead. Yeah, I mean, look, just grateful to do what I do. I enjoy it. I love it. It's challenging, but it's a healthy challenge, and
Mhm.
more of the same. Just showing up consistently for as long as possible, and that's the name of the game.
Yeah, no, completely agree. It's a labor of love, and when you love the club like you do it. It might be not easy at times, but you do it. So, and again, as I said to Josh last week with the Further North podcast in North, I respect guys that stay with their club, that you show the loyalty to the club, because up here, Americans, we're fickle. We like to jump ship and jump to a team that's winning. It's not easy. So, the respect and love that I have for Australian fans would they go through 30 years of teams not playing well. So you got to love it. So I respect and love the work that you do, Terry. So it's been fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for today's episode. Again, if you like what you are listening to, please like and subscribe. Again, more footy coverage, state league reviews coming up in the next couple of weeks as we have started to get into it. Women's and men's competitions at the state league is always fun. And of course, AFL reviews as per usual. So that's going to do it for today's episode. And we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very